Hey guys, Andrew here from Dystopian. Just before you get into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know that we run into a couple of technical issues with the recording of this one. From about the 24th minute onwards, you'll hear some crackling noise appear sporadically throughout the remainder of the show. Look, we think it's an issue with one of the microphones, and we're currently working to resolve it. Edited this one as best we could, but unfortunately haven't been able to get rid of the noise completely. So look, hopefully this doesn't ruin the listening experience, and I will let you get on with the episode. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of Dystopedia. I'm your host Matt Davidson and I'm joined again as always with my colleague Andrew Hodgson.
How are you?
I'm well, thanks Andrew. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm actually pretty excited today.
Yeah, looking forward to this episode?
Also seeing Kasabian tonight as well. So
yeah, that should be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, that's going to be good. Already had a few beers.
Yeah. Well, speaking of beers, what beers are we having today?
We are having Asahi.
Very nice. Very fitting for today's episode.
Well, it's a Japanese, what would you call it, anime?
Yeah, anime movie, adapted from a manga, so some people call it Akira or Akira. I'll go with Akira just for this episode to make it easy to pronounce for us, I guess. Yeah. And also just a warning ahead, we're going to butcher some names, so just keep that in mind. Yeah. Well, obviously on last week's episode, we went through examination day. I guess that has some, I guess every kind of episode has kind of a link to the previous one, where I guess with Akira, it does have those elements as well to a dystopian future where all is not well, all is not what it seems, and behind the glitz and the glamour of a cityscope, there's a rotten core beneath it kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, and I think where this will differ from examination day is probably reading the plot alone. That you'll see here, when I would have taken, 3 lines, that last plot?
Yeah, it took you, 20 seconds?
Yeah, this is probably going to take half the episode, so...
Yeah, probably, yeah. And I think, with examination day last week too, while it was such a short, a 10-minute episode, there were so many themes in it where this is a 2-hour movie adapted from a 6-chapter manga, with so many different elements and themes and plots and so many different... subculture stuff referenced in it. So there's lots to take in with Akira.
Oh, it's a hell of a lot to take in. As we established last week, it's the first time I've seen it. You've seen it, 3 or 4 times?
Yeah, I've seen it. I saw it about 3 times before we thought we were doing it for an episode, and then I've watched it twice since in preparation for this. So yeah, and it's funny. Even 4th time watching it, it's some things I still missed of it, but then researching it properly, then watching it again, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. This is where they're going with it. Now I see what the undertones are. I see why this character had this motivation. So it invokes so many things like that.
Yeah, I watched it. I just went in, looking for a better word here, I just went in raw, basically.
Yeah.
I watched it, and look, I was a bit hungover as well when I watched it. I kind of just needed it. Really, I should have just picked a stupid film or something, like something by Michael Bay or something, you know what I mean?
Or like Step Brothers, Step
Brothers, yeah.
Or the South Park movie.
So yeah, I thought, what, in getting ready for this episode, I'm gonna get started on it and watch it. I couldn't tell you. I texted you after. I said, "What the fuck is this movie even about?"
Yeah, you texted me going, "I don't know if I like it or not."
Yeah, I'm not even sure if I like this. Like, what's all the hype about? And then a few days later, I did a little bit of research, a couple of things there was a few things that dawned on me, a few things that I found quite intriguing. And as I did a little bit more research, I thought, you know what? It's actually quite a good film. And it's not it's not their fault that I don't know what's going on. I guess, we've spoken before about the 1984 movie, both lovers of that film, right?
Yeah,
and obviously the literature. But seeing the 1984 film, it would almost, to the uninitiated, you wouldn't know what's going on. But I can't now be a hypocrite and say I don't like something for that reason, right? Like it's not dumbing it down for me, and I got to respect that, right? So
yeah, definitely. And I do apologise if you hear dogs in the background. I'm currently house sitting at my dad's place, so they're going to pipe in maybe once in a blue moon. But yeah,
they're good boys, though.
They are very good boys. Yep, as all dog blokes are. But yeah, it's funny you say that, because I remember one of my favorite YouTubers is a guy called Happy Console Gamer, and he's one of the gateway guys that got me into like watching some animes, because I've always had an appetite to watch cartoons, but adult themes to it, which a lot of anime has, which is good. Which I'll, because when you get a bit older, you want something that makes you challenges you a bit, wants to make you think and see something a bit gory and violent. So, and I remember he had this as like his number one anime film of all time. I think, okay, and when he described the plot and the setting, I'm like, sounds really intriguing. Like, I'll have to watch this. And he was talking too about the magnitude of it at the time when it came out. Like, no one had seen anything like it before. It was, I hate to say it, I always say it every episode, but it was ahead of its time, so kind of thing.
Yeah, I've got to say, some of the visuals and the score and the technical aspects of it's brilliant.
Oh, it is, yeah. And then, particularly, the first thing I remember what visually struck me is when the guy's taking the Esper through the streets of Neo Tokyo, and then you're seeing him when the soldiers start shooting him, and you're seeing the blood effects and the spurts like going. Like, it was very like visual, graphic, and very like you're seeing like it's very detailed in that way. Where before other cartoons or anything like that, it's not. It's kind of the still frame of it's not the same. So like it was definitely very ahead of its time in that way. But yeah, so go back to what I was saying before. But yeah, I remember watching it the first time and thinking I do like it, but then I don't understand it. I'm confused by it. What's going on and why did this happen? Or what direction was it going in? I don't understand it. But then watching it again and again, and then, as I said earlier, doing a bit of prep and research into this episode, I'm like, it just clicks. And then I understand why people now consider it like
you're watching it through different lenses.
And you can see what the author's trying to say and the messaging behind it. And especially too where Japanese culture was at that particular point in time when he wrote it in the 80s. When they're coming out of that under American rule, and they're coming their own country and coming like this. There's a big economic boom. They're getting into like capitalism. It's all growing, and
it's so far away from what the Japan of
Imperial Japan.
Yeah.
But then there's still elements of that Imperial Japan in there, but they're losing their identity a bit, and you can really feel that. So, but and just as I said earlier, just like researching it and just seeing all the subplots and everything, and the references they put in there, and the allegories and stuff. I can see why, and I would consider it a masterpiece. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you like? I really liked it, and I can see where it's inspired a lot of other things. We talked about there's a South Park reference in it, but there's a lot of other movies. We've already done Final Fantasy VII. It's a massive influence on that. I can see.
Oh, you can see its fingerprints all through it. Yeah.
And look, no doubt we'll go through the influences a little bit later, and I can see why it's so important. It's not my favorite movie of all time, but I definitely find it really intriguing.
Yeah.
But does it help that you're onto anime, do you think?
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm a massive anime fan, but I'm always appreciative of where like those genre defining, media elements. Like, for example, I always appreciate Citizen Kane, even though it's very dated, but I appreciate what it was for the time and how it pushed things to where it is now. And so looking at it from that lens and seeing, because before Akira, especially in the West, there was no cartoons with the kids. They were Disney's. They were the ones that did cartoons. When you had your Scooby Doo's and things like that too. But it was all kids things. Where this was the first one where even like famous Hollywood directors saying, "Oh no, this is the future of filmmaking," kind of thing. Yeah. So
I really picked up that when I saw it. That was the biggest thing that stood out to me.
Or obviously too, it's called the Akira slide. That with the famous bike scene when he goes at the start of it. Like a lot of films have used that as a reference. I think even The Dark Knight has it. I think Christopher Nolan said that he used that when I think the part in The Dark Knight where Batman's on the bike and he slides.
Yes.
And
I know.
That was reference from that. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so there's little things like that.
Even the bike is very similar.
It is. Yeah. You can see what it is, and it just the whole like cyberpunk feel to it, and it's just like. You want to explore the city, when you see it and stuff. It's just fascinating.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things in it that. And look, do you want to go through some of the movies that it influenced, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I couldn't believe how many things it was influenced. Like big, like genre-defining films that we've seen through the 90s up until now. Like to say films, for example, The Matrix was a big influence. They've said so. The bullet time effects was inspired by Akira's animation, apparently. So. The Wachowski sisters said that was a big thing for them. So,
like the slow motion,
and the.
I noticed a lot of that in that first chase scene.
Yeah, going through there, and then Christopher Nolan in Inception, like the bending the cityscapes, where it turns up on its sideways. That was inspired by that. Well, recently too, I don't know if you've seen it, Ready Player One. But
I have.
Oh, you have seen it? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, great. Yeah. That Spielberg said that was a big influence on that one.
Well, the bike's
visuals.
actually in it, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's like a
Yeah.
little Easter egg.
Well, I didn't know, but thinking back, because they made a big point of that bike. Oh, not like a big point, but everyone's, it was sort of a big deal in it. I'm like, it didn't mean anything to me.
Me.
Like, there we are.
Oh, yeah, you'd be like Leonardo DiCaprio and in the Hollywood movies, like, the everybody's hand, like, I get it now. Yeah. And then just, this was kind of this anime film, because in the 90s, that's when that big influx of those, like, timeless animes came out, like, like Cowboy Bebop, Neon Genesis Evangelion, other things like that they all, like, said, like, Akira was the one that got the inspiration.
Kick down the door.
Kick down the door, yeah.
They're like NWA for rap.
Exactly, 100%. Good analogy there. Yeah. And as we said the last couple of weeks, if we had a South Park reference, you'll be glad to know there's a couple of South Park references in here. Even, because Trey Parker from South Park, he studied Japanese at college, like in the anime. So that's why he has a lot of those influences in South Park. And I think a couple of Akira stuff comes up in some episodes. So
even the noises that you see in the episode that we do get into in the South Park reference part of the show when we get into it.
Yeah.
There's noises that the big blob thing makes that like,
He's like, because when you first watch the episode of South Park, you'd be like, this is a bit, I don't know what this is, but then you see the it's fucking mad, yeah.
Rosie O'Donnell,
that's right.
No, there's two of them.
Yeah. Oh God, those two, those two, they should be immortalized. I don't care what anyone happens to them. They're amazing.
They should.
I guess too. Also, I think before we go into the plot, just like talk about a bit of the backstory of the creator himself. So his name is Katashiro Otomo. So if I said once again, apologies if I butcher that. So like a lot of his inspiration was based on his personal upbringing and things like, and in the city, in the Japan he was growing up in. So he was born in 1954. So you're thinking, that's 9 years removed from when the atomic blast happened.
It still would have been a lot of recovery.
Right? Still recovery though, definitely. But they're strong. They're really rebuilding strong American influence. They're losing they don't have their cultural identity is gone a bit.
Yeah,
and
I guess a lot, right?
Oh, would have, yeah. And then they were utterly humiliated too, right? So they were very much, Japanese culture, very prideful, very, honor, respect, culturally, that kind of thing. So,
I think even with the, sorry, not to turn this into the Second World War podcast, even though we both love it.
Yeah.
But it was probably 9 years on from when they never heard the Emperor speak ever.
Yeah, that's true.
And he came over the radio to tell them that we're surrendering.
Yeah.
So you think that was a massive change in Japanese culture.
Oh, it would have been a massive shock to the system.
Huge shock, and this would have been in its infancy.
Or too, General Douglas MacArthur came in. And he was kind of like the governor of Japan for a while there, and he was the one that was trying to turn the emperor more into a political figure as opposed to this divine god figure. So he had Hirohito like shaking people's hands on the street and going around being like a politician, being like a president or something,
Yeah, for years. I mean, it was only, I think for 300 years from the 15th century or something to the 18th century, Japan was closed off to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So to go from that to 450 years later to where they were then, I don't think we can overstate how much of a change it would have been this time.
Yeah, no, definitely, yeah. I guess too during that period too, like you said, he grew up in, you'd say like his formative like teenage years would have been like the 1960s and 70s. So there was definitely a lot of countercultures the way it was going, and that that very capitalist progressive economic boom in a way where there's a lot of like biker gangs and crime, and identity was becoming a big issue, their identity in general was getting lost in between the two. Like obviously they wanted to change to a different future, but then they didn't want to lose their soul at the same time. I guess there've been a lot of conflicting cultures going on there, right? Do you think?
Yeah, and it seemed to move very quick as well, didn't it? I mean, the Japan of today, 20 years ago to 50 years ago, it's incredible.
It's night and day, isn't it?
It is.
To say, just from a historical point, it is remarkable, like how quickly from way it got absolutely. Because people always think of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? But Tokyo got absolutely firebombed to next dimension, basically. Like it got decimated. The whole country was
more people died in those firebombings.
Yeah, than the bombs. People don't realize.
They don't. Yeah.
Yeah. that's another topic for another discussion. But yeah,
It is. We could go off and talk about that for quite a bit.
we'll stay on target.
So, yeah.
Also, too, he had a love for sci-fi, cyberpunk kind of thing. So you can see that Blade Runner was a bit of an influence for him. So he incorporated elements of that. You can see by the cityscapes and stuff was very Blade Runner-esque. So also, too, what I found interesting is because Japan was becoming this, economic power, booming economy, it created more jobs for people in animation and manga. So there was an appetite. There was a growing middle class, so they had disposable income now, so they could afford to buy, the magazines and the books and TV shows and all forms of media. So it kind of like he struck at a good time to do this in the growing landscape of where Japan was going.
Something aligned, right?
He said stars aligned, perfect. Yeah, exactly. I guess he also describes like Akira, Tatus, the characters, Canada, and I always butcher this name, but Tetsuo. Tetsuo. Thank you. Yeah. It was kind of like his personality. It's like a part of him was that character, and a part of him was the other character. So it was kind of like an internal conflict within himself. I think he's described it. So, and it was a perfect way to explore those, like his personality traits in a way, like in this, dystopian cyberpunk setting, right thing. So yeah, and just finally, as I said earlier too, it was kind of, it was really at that time, especially in the 80s, he was just trying to mirror what was going on with Japan. It was like constantly growing and bigger, better. Capitalism was just pumping and churning, and all these corporations were popping up left, right, and center, skyscrapers, and like you see Tokyo to where it was 50 years ago to where it was in the 80s, and now it's just like it's a massive.
I guess it was almost just unchecked industrialization, which kind of mirrors in the film, and I wonder, thinking about it now, if it's like almost a metaphor for like the testing that the government's doing on the espers, like they're almost unchecked and they're just testing and testing and testing, and then until finally, spoiler alert, with what happens with Akira. Yeah, I wonder if he's just written it as a response to that as well. Even just you saying that's just popped into my head,
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think the atomic blast is definitely like an allegory for like a lot of the the plots and the messages behind it, right? And you can what I like too about Japanese manga and anime and stuff is that it has this kind of cynical undertone to it, because sometimes there isn't a bright light at the end of the tunnel. There's like, no, when you mess around, when you fuck around, things happen and devastation.
So not like an American
film.
It's
not like the American film.
There's got to be some hope.
There's no hope, yeah. I mean, some animes do obviously have hope, but like there is that real dark undertone to a lot of their things, which I like.
Realism.
It's realism to it, yeah. Exactly, so.
Chat shit, get banged, basically.
100%.
To quote Jamie Vardy.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how many people are going to get that, but...
Yeah, a bit of a football reference, or English Premier League. Just before we go into the plot, sorry, one more thing, because we are both video game enjoyers. Here's just some of the games that it helped inspire. So we mentioned earlier Final Fantasy VII. It influenced Cyberpunk 2077, which is which makes sense. Yeah. There's a lot of Easter eggs in that for it. But one Hideo Kojima. So he did Snatcher back in 1988, big influence, and then obviously went into Metal Gear Solid. So that was a big influence for him in that. And then one of your favorite series of all time too, the Half-Life.
Right.
So they took inspiration about the authoritarian regime and echoes the Akira anti-government rebellion and the urban decay, but it wasn't more than the second one though, isn't it? But yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was really fascinating. Like it's little things like, because it's kind of a film that no one really talks about in the big discussions, but it's got its fingerprints in so many different things, so many big franchises and media stuff that you would never think of. So
doing the research for this episode, that was what, as we said, that was what impressed me more. So watching the film and then reading the inspirations and the overarching themes, and trying to watch it again the second time, I appreciated it more. Yeah. Whereas going in, I had no clue.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. But yeah, so I reckon now is a good time. We'll go through the plot and take it up from there and explore the dystopian themes after.
Yep. All right. I will jump straight into that. So, in 2019, following a world war triggered by the sudden destruction of Tokyo on July 16, 1988, Neo-Tokyo was plagued by corruption, anti-government protests, terrorism, and gang violence. During a violent rally, the hot-headed Shotaro Kaneda leads his vigilante Bosso Zoku, or biker gang, the Capsules, against the rival Cloud Gang. Kaneda's best friend, Tetsuo Shima, inadvertently crashes his motorcycle into Takashi, an Esper who escaped from a government laboratory with the aid of a resistance organization. Assisted by fellow Esper Masaru, Japan's Self-Defense Forces Colonel Shikishima recaptures Takashi, has Tetsuo hospitalized, and arrests the capsules. While being interrogated by the police, Kaneda meets Kei, an activist within the resistance movement, and tricks the authorities into releasing her with his gang. At a secret government facility, Shikishima and his head of research, Dr. Onishi, discover that Tetsuo possesses powerful psychic abilities similar to Akira, the Esper responsible for Tokyo's 1988 destruction. Esper Kyoko forewarns Shikishima of Neo-Tokyo's impending destruction, but the city's parliament dismisses Shikishima's concerns, leading him to consider killing Tetsuo to prevent another cataclysm. Meanwhile, Tetsuo escapes from the hospital, steals Kaneda's motorcycle, and tries to flee Neo-Tokyo with his girlfriend Kori. But the clowns ambush them. The capsules rescue Tetsuo and Kaori, but Tetsuo suffers intense headaches and hallucinations and is rehospitalized. Overhearing their plan to rescue Tetsuo and the other Espers, Kaneda joins Kei's resistance cell. At the hospitals, the Espers try killing Tetsuo via hallucinations, but the attempt is thwarted. A frustrated Tetsuo searches for them, killing any orderlies and militiamen blocking his path. The resistance group infiltrates the hospital, and Kyoko draws Kei and Kaneda into Shikishima's and the Esper's futile attempts to stop Tetsuo. Kyoko tells Tetsuo that Akira, located in cryonic storage beneath the Olympic Stadium's construction site, could help Tetsuo with his powers. After betraying everyone around him, especially Kaneda, Tetsuo flees the hospital to hunt for Akira. Using Kei as a medium to stop Tetsuo, Kyoko breaks her and Kaneda out of military custody. Shikishima stages a coup d'etat against Neo-Tokyo's government and directs its military forces to destroy Tetsuo at any cost. At the capsule's former hangout, Harukiya Bar, Tetsuo confronts gangmates Yamagata and Kai over Kaneda's bike and kills Yamagata after his protest. Kai relays the news to Kaneda, who vows to avenge his friend, while Takashi brings Kai away. Mistaken for Akira by cultists, Tetsuo rampages through Neo-Tokyo, arriving at Akira's cryogenic storage dewa under the stadium. Kei fights Tetsuo, but he defeats her and exhumes Akira, only to find his remains sealed in jars for scientific research. Kaneda fights Tetsuo with a laser rifle, and Shikishima fires an orbital weapon at him. While the latter destroys his arm, neither can stop him. Shikishima and Kori approach the stadium, where Tetsuo, now with a robotic arm, is in great pain and losing control over his powers. Kaori tries restraining Tetsuo, while Shikishima unsuccessfully offers to heal his injuries and help control his abilities. Kaneda again finds Tetsuo, who, weakened from the missing arm, mutates into a gigantic mass of flesh, engulfing Kaneda and killing Kaori. The Espers revive Akira to stop the growing mass. Reuniting with his friends, Akira creates a singularity, drawing Tetsuo and Kaneda into another dimension. The Espers teleport Shikishima to a safe distance as the singularity destroys Neo-Tokyo in a mirror of Tokyo's previous destruction, and they agree to rescue Kaneda, knowing they will not return to this dimension as a result. In the singularity, Kaneda experiences Tetsuo and the Esper's childhoods, including his and Tetsuo's friendship, and the Esper's psychic training before Tokyo's destruction. The Espers return Kaneda to Neo-Tokyo, informing him that Akira will take Tetsuo to safety, and that Kei is developing psychic powers. Onishi witnesses the birth of a universe, but is killed in his lab's destruction. After consuming most of Neo-Tokyo, the singularity disappears, and water floods the crater left in its place. Mourning Tetsuo's loss, Kaneda discovers that Kei and Kai have survived, and they ride off into the ruins while Shikishima watches the sunrise. At an unspecified plane of reality, Tetsuo introduces himself and triggers the creation of a universe, finally transcending the limitations of human existence.
Yeah, that's
that is really complex.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I can see why we're all confused the first time we watched it.
Yeah. Honestly, going in without any prior research, I
And being hungover, yeah, it would have been.
My head was all over the place, honestly.
Oh, it is, yeah. Even that ending when it happens, like when you see it happen, like the ending going into another universe, it goes into that territory, like the third and fourth dimensions and stuff.
To be honest, I still don't understand it.
Yeah, it's like it's trying to like touch on elements of like God and the universe. We don't. I think he's trying to say too that there's some things that we can't never explain. This is above our capacity of undertaking.
I know when you see like Anisha, there's a little. When the orb goes small, there's like another Big Bang happening, or something. But then, what happens to the rest of the citizens of Neo Tokyo? Were they okay, or
I think they got wiped out. But
I'm sort of watching the ends a bit ambiguous, and they're all like riding off into the sun. Like, okay.
I think too, doing research on it too, there was like the manga was still ongoing when he was making the film, so it wasn't completed. So the first 2 books apparently are like part 1. And then part 6 was the last bit of the movie. So the middle section was kind of a bit jungled and a bit messed, like intertwined a bit. So I think he actually didn't finish the actual manga till like 1990. So the final bit of the film was like out before the actual manga finished. So everyone was kind of like...
That would have been a bit controversial, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been a bit controversial. And also too, like, did he direct it that way, like the ending because of the movie, or was that always part of the plan? That was a bit like, I don't really know in that kind of way, but... It'd be interesting to find out, I guess, but yeah. That's why when I found that out, I was like, oh, that makes sense why it's a bit convoluted in the middle section of the movie, where it gets a bit, oh wait, it's going this direction or that direction, or it's a bit, Especially when they bring the Espers into it and their motivations and them manipulating stuff. But as you said earlier in the episode about, it's like similar to 1984. If you watch the film without reading the book, it's a bit, it'd be a bit jarring, a bit disjointed. Yeah.
It's not holding your hand, and it took me a few days to realize, like, you know what, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'll learn. It's my responsibility. It's not yours, it's mine. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's just what I like about it too is just it just encapsulates everything we talk about in Dystopia, right? The whole film, like it just from start to end. It's like when you first watch, I love this too. When the film starts, it's basically a nuclear bomb going off. With no context or warning or anything.
It doesn't waste any time getting into it, does it?
No, it doesn't.
You know what I thought, that kind of impassioned me to look at what was going on in the world in 1988 when the bomb. So they say the bomb goes off
July 16, I think.
July 16 in 1988, which is different from the manga I think you said to me.
Yeah, I think it was 1992 in the manga, and then it's then set in like 2030 or something like that. But I think they did it because it was like the year was 1988, so then it makes sense, right? So,
but obviously that was one of the last years of the Cold War. But there's a few instances. So I thought like they talk about a World War III happening in that. So that we now know. So that wasn't a nuclear bomb. It was Akira, right?
Yeah.
Being pushed to limits and just I guess being pushed away as far as he could go and uncontrollably destroys Neo Tokyo, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
But then that sets off a chain of events that other countries start firing at each other, which I would have loved to have seen what was going on in the rest of the world. It's a common theme, and I'm sure it's a common theme in every episode we do. You want to go beyond the source material. You want to see what's happening in...
Yeah, you see...
What does this world look like, you know?
Well, when I had a look at... I was in a bookstore the other day, and I had a quick look at the anime. I actually had a copy of it there, the anime itself, like the first chapter, and it mentions, like, when the bomb does go off, it says, like, 8 hours later, London, Birmingham... New Delhi have all fallen. It actually says Stalin, it says Leningrad in it too, because it would have been during the 80s, right?
Oh, Soviet. Yeah,
it was Soviet. So it says like all these towns have all fallen. But then it goes, then the rebuild begins. So it doesn't really delve into... It's kind of like it's just a chain reaction as opposed to like this caused that, therefore this. Yeah, so it's just the world just reacts to it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, cool. Well, look, it impassioned me to... I wanted to have a look at what was going on in the world at the time just to see what the influence might have been behind it. So 1988, the... INF Treaty was signed by the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty was signed with by Gorbachev and Reagan. So it was signed in 1987, but it came into effect in 1988. So to basically get rid of that class of nuclear missiles. Yep. There was Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan. There was a U.S. Navy warship, so the USS Vincennes mistakenly shoots down an Iranian passenger plane, killing 290 people. It sort of mirrored that Cal K-17 one we did. It was the Soviets shot down in 1983. I didn't know about this one. The reason, I guess, this one was quite big because Iran was an ally of the Soviet Union, so it really could have kicked off, you know?
Yeah.
And then there was a Black Sea bumping incident. So the USS Yorktown and USS Karen Caron entered Soviet waters, Soviet vessels actually rammed them to like forcefully ram them to like get them out of the waters.
Oh, interesting.
But it was contained there. It stopped there. But a couple of moments there
Yeah,
where,
a couple of hair trigger moments where you're like, whoa.
particularly at that time.
Very
Look, I know Gorbachev was going through his, I think he was going through his perestroika, where he was sort of looking back and declassifying a lot of documents and trying to change. He was trying to change a lot of policy and stuff like that. But
yeah, he was trying to get like correct like all the rotten core, but like once it was already infected, right? It wasn't incurable at that stage, was it? Yeah.
But I just thought that was interesting because there were still very real threats around the world at the time, So
yeah, and I assume too he would have seen way things like were being like authoritarian governments around the world at that time were acting, and would have used that like as an influence the way that the government in Tokyo acts throughout the film as well. So that definitely would have been an inspiration and about authoritarianism when you see it, which is heavily influenced in it. So
yeah, definitely.
I guess too, like, so when what I was saying before, when the film starts, you see the bomb blast goes off, and then it cuts to 2019, and then you see the glitz and the glamour, and you're seeing this beautiful city, skyscrapers and
neon signs,
and the what's it called, like the what are they called? The one where the holograms of seeing stuff like that around.
Yeah, very Blade Runner.
Right? Blade Runner, exactly. Yeah, you think, okay, it's like this ultra futuristic city where all technology on steroids, and it seems like everything's prosperous and happy. But then it cuts straight to the biker scenes where they're driving through the streets, and they're in the bar initially, and it's got that real grungy feel to it. And then you're seeing graffiti on the walls, and this bit like lawlessness going around, like it's just everywhere where
in the slums. And it's funny, like it mirrors a lot of things in the real world, where often it's a city being rebuilt out of what happened earlier, obviously established, but often like now due to probably political corruption and stuff, often you find that money always will funnel to like corporate and political
top end.
Top end, and the bottom just gets forgotten.
Well, there's a great scene too where you see the streets where the high rises are. It's like a park on the top of it. This beautiful walkway and a fountain spreading water.
It's like the only bit of green you see in the film, right?
Yeah, and then when it cuts down to the ground level where the main characters are. Yeah, and as I said before, got the graffiti, got the scrungy streets. There's rubbish everywhere. Cars turned over its side. It's in the middle of a political or a political rebellion from the young people, like the college and university students, and they're protesting the government. And you're seeing that the battle going on there, and they're just shutting things down. But then when we cut to Canada and the capsule gang, they're going through the streets, and they're just aimlessly going around like fighting rivals it seems like it's out of pure boredom, really. It's kind of like there's no direction, so they're just engaging in this street battle.
Yeah, it doesn't really no, I don't know, I haven't read the manga. Maybe it talks about this, some all-encompassing, they're their arch enemies for some reason, but certainly I'm going by only what I've seen in the film. It just seemed, that's it. It's just the results of their surroundings, and that's what they do for fun.
Yeah, exactly. Or when they're going through too, and they're going through that intersection, they cut that car off, and then they smash the windows, and then he
throws like a bomb,
grenade or something, and then they push when they're getting into a bike fight with the clown gang, and they throw the guy through the window of that nice restaurant, and then there's smashing.
Yeah, you would probably kill the diner that's there or something.
Yeah, there's no like care, or they don't give a shit. They're in the moment. They're all they can focus on is taking out their rival. And what hits you too when you first, I can imagine too at the time, when people were seeing it, like it's just so brutal and raw. Like they got the pipe, and they're smacking their heads, and there's blood going everywhere. And
that's where you see some of those slow-mo scenes.
Yeah, it's beautifully animated the way it's done too.
You know what it reminded me of? Do you remember playing? Sorry, I will stay on target.
Yeah.
But Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast. When you'd fight another Jedi and you kill him and it goes slow motion.
Yeah, it is like that.
That's honestly, it was my first thought.
Well, slow-mo, Matrix before. That's probably where they got it from. That kind of thing. So. Yeah, and when you're seeing that, and then the beautiful animation, and you're seeing the neon lights and the skyline in the background, and just and the music too, just really gets you in the zone of like the intensity of it too. Yeah,
that was the score was really impressive, really original. Where was that music from? I think you mentioned to me before.
It was it's kind of like a blend of like futuristic techno cyberpunk notes to it, but then it's also got like this Indonesian culture, like. Banging the drums kind of thing to it as well, mixed together, and something about it just works.
It does.
Yeah, it's kind of like like everything's like, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it's kind of got that feel where it's like that we were talking about before, that cultural identity in Japan where there's still that old imperial society there, but then also the new glitz and glamour and the new technology emerging and the booming economy aspect to it. So it's like a beautiful way to like sum it up in a way, like that music setting the scene for it. So
yeah, really works.
But yeah, but then we get to the point too where we're seeing the two main characters going at it, like he can't keep up with Kaneda. Then he's chasing one of the other clown gangs, and then that's when he runs into the Esper, right? He gets the first Esper. So I guess I like to say like an Esper is like a telekinetic being that can, like a mind control thing, right?
Would be showing signs, of So like an Esper is it's kind of like ESP, which would mean like an extrasensory perception. So anyone perceived with like I guess telekinetic or abilities or would be showing signs of that. What's interesting about this is there was actually research done in the Cold War from I think both the US and Soviet Union.
Yeah, I heard about that actually.
It's very hard to actually find details on it, and there's a lot of rumor to it. But the Soviet Union were apparently. You know what? Sorry, I'm going to go off topic here. We'll get into the. So he hits the one of the Espers, and this is where Tetsuo actually, the government intervenes. And then they take him
because when they clash, that's where he gets he like gets some powers from that.
Yes,
yeah, and that's how he gets in like he's not infected, I guess, but kind of like that's the best way to sum it up. He gets infected by it. So
and then the government takes him. He starts showing signs of it, and they're like testing on him.
Yeah,
and this is where I guess the military industrial complex gets into it.
Yeah.
So like, as I say, so to go back to my story with I just didn't want to get too far off topic, but. Yeah, there was real research done, apparently, and the Soviet Union were really looking into this. Reports of using like unwilling test subjects, political prisoners, all sorts of things. And their whole reason would be to be looking at telekinetic abilities or mind-reading abilities to sort of read the minds of NATO officials or something, for example. So there was real research in this area. X-Men's probably... X-Men's probably a comic written out of that, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's not as if this sort of stuff hadn't been looked at in the past, you know?
Yeah. I guess we'll go back into the plot again, but like just on the Espers as well, like it's kind of I felt like so like sad for them, just that like they're kids, but then they're also old as well because like they're all aged and you see them like at the end of the movie, you see the flashback when they were kids and they were just normal kids, and then they've been just so like the government's just drained all their resources out of them, every little minute detail, you know, like.
Well, I almost thought that they were different creatures or something, like a different race or something.
Yeah.
You know when you see, and I don't know his name, but he comes down in like the ball, and there's this wiseness to them. I think it's all the rigorous testing and the pushing to try and find that like new Akira, and this is where like Colonel Shikishima to me was probably my favorite character through the whole thing.
Yeah, he's a really good character.
Like I just feel like he's not bad. But he stands for like a corrupt system, and he really like he defined or he sort of he was the what's the word I'm looking for? He was like the manifest of like the military industrial complex.
Yeah,
like the whole thing of like we get to later in the plot where they haven't destroyed Akira, they've actually kept Akira cryogenically frozen. So instead of learning about what happened, they're just doubling down and trying to push again.
Yeah,
and what does that say? Like that mirrors the fucking military-industrial complex in our own world, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think there's a part in the film when he's talking to the scientists. They're going down the elevator to who Akira is, and I think he was saying like, because he's saying we're on the edge of destruction, blah, or whatever it is, and he goes, I'm just the difference between you and me is that I'm a soldier. I just follow orders at the end of the day. Yeah, I don't really question the system or anything, or even though I don't agree with the way Neo Tokyo's gone, but I'm just following what it is, you know? Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we see like, there's a bit when he's speaking to the scientist, Dr. Onishi.
I think so, yeah.
He looks a lot like Albert Einstein, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does, yeah.
Yeah. But he's talking to him when they were initially testing on Tetsuo, and he says, look, can you have it under control? Oh, yeah, no, we'll be okay. And he's like, look, any signs of it showing that's going to get out of control, kill it straight away. Not referring to Tetsuo as anything. It's just like absolute disregard for like human life.
Yeah, I found it interesting too. He is the only one, the colonel. So what's his name again?
Shikishima.
Shikishima. he's the only one who refers to the espers by their actual names.
Yes.
Everyone else refers to them as number 26 or number 30.
Yeah.
So he's the only one that humanizes them, where the rest of that, no, they're just a subject. They're just there's a number in the system for us. You know, they're basically, he's like describing them as a weapon, really, aren't they? Like, that's what they are. They're there used for our means, and we'll use them to effectively, push us to a next level, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's things like, there's other things that the espers get into as well when they talk about. There's a bit where I think it's Kay and Kaneda are actually, they're trapped in they're imprisoned. You know, when they're halfway through the movie, when they're trying to infiltrate the...
Yeah, it's when they're undercover and trying to get into where Tetsuo is like being held captive.
Yeah. And she says to him, and I think she's been under the mind control of one of the espers, and she says to Kaneda that what if this power was given to like an amoeba? Like, obviously an amoeba is like a parasite sort of thing. It wouldn't suddenly change. Now that it's got the power of a god, it wouldn't just suddenly change and become good and use the powers of good. It's just going to do what it always done at a scale of at that scale, right? Almost saying, and this is one of the things that grew on me after, where it's like, you give the power of a god to a human. What they're not going to? They're just going to do what humans do, right?
It's like, it's powers beyond our scope, isn't it? Like, it's just,
and what are we suddenly going to become good and all encompassing? No, we're just going to use it to fulfill our aims and do what humans always do.
Yeah, and I think what he was trying to say as well, the author was, with topic weapons, right? So he's trying to incorporate it with that, where we've got this newfound weapon that can cause absolute destruction and mayhem on the whole planet, and it could wipe out civilization. And this is what kind of like Akira's powers reference, right? Where it can just cause this destruction. But
nuclear energy was brought in for... Now, it just shows everything about the human race. Now, nuclear energy, it could have solved the world's energy problems. It's never ending. We would never have to pay for energy. We could have had third world countries on a level with us. Instead, we find some fucking way of weaponizing it. Now, look, that was the Second World War, and I guess we had to make Oppenheimer. We had to chase that. We had to make the atomic bomb because
otherwise the Germans would have.
Look, I get that. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. You look back, we should have never dropped it. Blah blah blah. But you
it's one of those things. Once Pandora's box opened, it's that, you know.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing as well. Where like almost Fukushima's trying to limit the research a little bit when he's talking to the doctor, but it mirrors like AI technology now. A lot of the people that actually helped develop this AI technology in our world have jumped on the other side and almost trying to limit development. You can't do that. I'm sorry, that's not how it works.
And as we said in previous episodes too, it's part of the human. We're always just pushing for the bigger and better and more. It's never enough. We've always got to keep finding ways to keep on improving on top of each other. I mean, it is a survival instinct, I guess, but sometimes when it's not tapped, when it's just like I think we said in Final Fantasy VII with Hojo, we were doing the experiments where he had unlimited control to keep experimenting on things that everything he wanted, and then the ending result was Sephiroth, right? So, but in this thing, it's these Espers, they're constantly under their control and testing on them and manipulating them and using them for their benefit. Like, it's just, it's really, it was really sad. I found it sad and depressing seeing their life like that. They're trapped in this room, and another thing that's fascinating too with the story as well. It's like one little incident is what sparked the whole thing, right? Where that corrupt government official who was like a double agent, where you don't really know his motivations in the end, because you see him at the end like run away with the suitcase, but he's the one leaking all the information out to the resistance group.
Yeah,
and he's like manipulating them to help cause chaos and disarray, and
because it serves his aims.
But then you don't know what he's like. Is he part? Like, does he want the government overthrown so he comes to the next one, or is he just using it so he can become wealthier? Like, you don't really know.
I think a bit of both. I think he wants to sort of take advantage of the chaos.
Yeah,
but again, I do appreciate it about the film. It's not just good and bad. It's not just black and white. Everybody's got their motivations.
Everyone's got their agendas.
Everybody's got their agendas. You know,
the
world isn't black and white.
It's like the same that because he did that and gave them the information. That's why the resistance were able to break in and get the initial Esper out.
Yes,
and running through the streets, and that's what caused a chain reaction to that, and that sparks the whole film, right? Where everything happens like that. So it just, because what I love too, another thing that brings up where, because of these leaks coming out, people like spiritual leaders have viewed Akira as like this god, this religion popping up, and they're worshipping him and drawing him and having him as a god figure. And I remember the one part where they're graffitiing on the streets, and then the government sends in the force to shut it down, going, "This is unlawful congregation. You must disperse immediately."
Yeah, and I didn't get that on initial watching. Like, I saw it. I'm like, but why? Why are they quelling this, or why do they see this as dissent? But then you realise that, Akira has been kept under lock and key. We don't want anyone looking too far into this, because if they find out, we didn't tell them what that explosion was. We don't need them to know that it was.
We'll let them think it's a World War. We'll let them think it's a nuclear blast. Yeah,
yes.
It's kind of kept on the wraps there.
Mm.
And then I guess too, like when you see like the government itself, like it's the way like they're out at that round table and they're all blaming each other for what's going, the chaos, and like, well, because you're using the budget for this, that's causing this chaos. Why are we building this big stadium?
Everyone's looking for a scapegoat.
And then and it sums up too, but like it's all about like the glitz and the glamour. Like they're building this beautiful like stadium for the Olympics coming next year
in 2020.
Ironically enough, which happened to be Japan, and then that got shut down because of COVID. But then this thing got shut down because of it's
crazy.
It's pulled a Simpsons.
Yeah, it has.
But how they're going, they're focusing on all these superficial things and making themselves look bigger and like making themselves look fantastic. But then beneath it all, like people are struggling on the streets and there's chaos and bedlam and stuff. So they just don't. It's all about filling their pockets.
It's what they want the world to see.
Exactly.
And every authoritarian regime in the world is like that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it definitely mirrors that perfectly and encapsulates that. And I love too, just with the protests as well. I love how it shows how savage and brutal the soldiers are. Where there's like one part in the crowd when they've got the tear gas out, and then he sees one protester like kind of like with a flag, shoots at him like directly, and just like brutally shutting them down.
Well, the police aren't there to sort of
maintain order.
Yeah, they're there to just suppress dissent. They're not there for anything else, Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it does that. It showcases that through the whole film too. And there's another part too when they're in the top section. I think when the two of the biker gangs they're meeting dates or something like that, and then they're like, "Oh, we're bored or something. We're going anyway." And then an explosion happens. Like, "Oh, the terrorists are here!" And then you see them running away, and they just indiscriminately start shooting people left, right, and center, like just non-stop. And you're just like, "Wow, that's like real."
Yeah.
As we talk about in Dystopia, like just no disregard for human life, and it doesn't matter if you're in vicinity, we don't care. We're shutting you down. You're
caught in the crossfire.
Bad luck.
Yeah.
Not our problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sort of unchecked. There's going to be no punishment for it. Look, another thing, I touched on it before, but the testing on Tetsuo and the subjects and stuff with the espers, just some real life events. Like to me, it shows that whole like the dangers of like an unchecked government doing these things. It brings up memories of like atrocities that happened in the Second World War when you look at the atrocities like the Angel of Death, Joseph Mengele did. There was no threat of punishment or no threat of I guess punishment for him. There was nothing holding him back. He was looking into going in some of the death camps, taking out prisoners, using them as subjects. He was doing like live autopsies, and he had a particular affinity for like twins and things like that. And I think for him it was like eugenics and hereditary things where he wanted to see what or why traits were passed down to sort of master like the Aryan race or something like that. But the kind of shit that people will do to people when there's no threat of punishment. But in his mind, it's justified because it's trying to the betterment of like their race.
Yeah, and then also too that he's been put in a position where the government agrees with those views and things that he can just, as I said earlier, get as untapped. He can go like do whatever he wants, right?
Yeah. He was like it's just some of the sick things that he was doing. One thing, bringing up this that I looked into, and Unit 731, in Japan. Now, I would probably have a sick affinity for the Second World War. I love the Second World War. I'd probably like to think I know everything about it. You would be the same, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I had never heard of these guys.
No, until you mentioned it, I've never heard of it either.
Yeah. Now, the reason I'm bringing it up, because this is obviously a Japanese manga, right? We've got the Asahi, and I'm going to bring Unit 731 into it too.
Yeah, fair enough.
But look, they were basically like, it was like they were looking at like biowarfare, that sort of thing, and they opened up like 1938 in China. Basically, so headed by a guy named Shiro Ishii. He would basically take prisoners of war, political prisoners, mostly communist Chinese members, things like that, and would experiment on them. So he would like, one of the things he would do is like frostbite testing. So he would basically put their limbs in like an ice cold, sub-zero temperatures without any anesthesia. And would basically just until they were like frozen solid, and then would try and he would use an open flame or warm water or see how long it would take to thaw out, sort of thing. Sometimes he would just leave people outside until their limbs fell off, or he would see how long they could go without being treated. Just real shit like that. Other things, they would do what's known as a vivisection, which is like an autopsy without any, while you're alive, basically without any anesthesia.
Just cutting you open without,
Would just cut them open to see how diseases like cholera and typhus would affect living tissue.
Yeah, that's the dehumanization of that is just, you can't imagine it, right?
He would amputate limbs and he'd put legs on arms. He would, look, some of the, I'm going to bring it up.
God, he'd make the Saw guy blush.
Yeah, well, he makes, and this is the thing, right? I'll get into the next one, but he would basically they have this thing with syphilis, and he'd want to see how that spreads. He would male prisoners would rape female prisoners, and just to see the effects of it and how it spread and what it did, and he wouldn't treat them. He'd lock people in rooms, and
you think he gets it might be some weird fetish for him or something. I don't know. That's very bizarre.
I don't know, but he would
that's some real power play stuff as well.
Yeah, he'd lock people in a room without any food and water and just see how long it'd take for them to die. Basically, just it evoked those memories, and we don't hear of the Japanese atrocities because of quite frankly, probably the atomic bombs dropped, right?
Yeah.
The worst thing about it is these guys, most of them, I think it only came out in 1984 that this stuff happened. Most of these guys went over to the US. The US government took them in, almost like Operation Paperclip with the Nazi scientists, because of their knowledge on the bioweapons and things like that. Most of them just died peacefully.
Never held accountable.
Never held accountable. So and I really like doing this podcast because I can learn shit like this,
It's funny. It's something like Akira's just gone down this rabbit hole you never thought you would go down. Yeah,
and that's why I really appreciate Akira. I do, because it's brought up these. I've learnt more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Akira's kind of forced me in that direction.
Yeah, as I said earlier, it just this. So you can see where its fingerprints is incorporated in so many different other aspects of media and stuff. Where it's just little things, little subtleties here and there. You're like, that's why it's referencing this, or that's why it's referencing that. I can see what the author was going in this direction, what he was trying to say about the time and Japan's history and where it's going and where it is now and where he envisions it could be if it's not, I guess, controlled or something. You know what I mean? It's where if it's just going in this direction, we could repeat the mistakes of the past again. So
yeah.
So I think it definitely definitely delves into that a lot. So
yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I guess too, I think a big part of it too, with the author as well, he was growing up in a time, I said earlier, Japan was becoming this mega capitalist country going forward, things like that. And there was a big, especially too, I guess a lot of times back then, and I guess now, we're all influenced by America, right? So in the 60s and 70s, there was a big that cultural movement of against the authorities, against rebelling against the status quo. And that's a lot of that is in this. When you see it in these biker gangs and the youth, they have no future really. They have no purpose, no direction in life. I really feel that Kaneda and Tetsuo, if they were popped into they were raised by good parents, they'd be model citizens and doing good and wonderful things. But because of the cards they've been dealt, they've decayed into this underground punk gang, just lawless running around, just causing mayhem and destruction without any future plans or anything, right? They're just And when you see them, that part where they're in the classroom and there's just graffiti on the wall, no one's listening, they're just mucking around, throwing stuff. There's no respect. In Japan, too, respect is a big part of you always respect your elders, you respect the people around you. They don't care about the teacher, and you can see too where violence is the language of the city in Neo-Tokyo. Everything's got violence attached to it. They learn and understand violence. So even when they're in the classroom and they're mucking up and they go to the principal's office, they get punched in the face or slapped around, and you got the bruises, but it doesn't seem to affect them or they're not learning from that, or they're not afraid by it. They're kind of expecting it. And then it's just a war of a duck's back for them, because that's the rule of the land at the moment.
Yeah. No matter what they do, it's not going to matter, right?
Yeah. And it's a good tale too, just about, I guess, you depending on your circumstances too, like, the Kaneda and Tetsuo, they were both orphans, right? And they're growing up, and Kaneda's like always looked out for Tetsuo, but then because he's done that, Tetsuo feels inferior, he feels weak and helpless and powerless a lot of the time, and little brother, but he goes resentful of that because he's sick of being rescued all the time. He wants to be his own person, but he always feels like he's being held back because Kaneda's this like big brash kind of this alpha male in a way, right kind of character.
There's always like that chip on his shoulder, little man syndrome.
Feeling weak and pathetic. Yeah,
weak and pathetic. Wants to prove everyone wrong, which I guess is why you see him wanting and seeking out all the power in the end, right?
Yeah, well, that's what another thing. A great analogy too for that is, it's a great way to say like the human race when it gets a power weapon like that, where when you are feeling weak and inferior, like you get been given these unlimited powers. What would how would you wouldn't know what to do with it, right? Like it's just
what's funny, that very thing you just said, that Oliver Stone DVD that you lent me, the Untold
Story of American History, wasn't it? Yeah,
yeah.
The United States.
And there was a part that he mentioned on the dropping of the atomic bomb with when Truman did it. That he gave a good backstory of Truman and talking about he grew up, he always had a bit of a chip on his shoulder, and he was a little bit felt inferior to people, and it almost questioned whether that would have happened had Roosevelt survived. I don't know, but it's that very thing you mentioned, like where Truman almost had to prove he wanted to prove people wrong. And
and that's Tetsuo for the whole story, right? He's always trying to prove himself, and even at the end when he is that powerful, got the godlike powers, he's
South Park reference. Ding, ding, ding,
ding, ding. There we go. Yeah.
What are you doing, Cal?
Yeah. Trapper keeper on. When he gets those godlike powers, even when Kaneda's there, and he could easily kill Kaneda, but it's in his mind. He still wants to prove him, like, still got that little brother syndrome in there, right? Like he's frustrated by seeing Kaneda trying to challenging him still, and he can't handle it as well. Like it's a perfect thing. I think what I like too, that big part when he comes, what are you doing, Kale? That big.
Should we play that?
Yeah, play it here. Let's go.
What are you doing, Kale?
I'm going to try and break you away from the computer, Cartman. I need to remove the CPU.
I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Kale.
Screw you, fat ass!
Hey, screw you.
Cartman! No!
When he plays that big, when he comes to that big blob abomination thing, it's funny how it kind of like, it's like the rebirth of him as well, where it comes like this baby character, it morphs in. It's like kind of like this is him going into that next dimension. Like there's so many different like God and fourth dimension plot stuff to it. Yeah, just like
metaphors and analogies.
It's my puny brain can't take it all at times. Yeah. Made me feel a bit stupid. I'm like, well, am I just stupid not getting this, or like,
No, mate.
Yeah.
I was reading afterwards, watching it, like, there's all these Reddit streams, like, can someone explain to me what the fucking plot is?
Yeah.
Because, like, I like it, but I don't know, I don't know why, or it's like, nah, mate, you're not stupid.
It's like that thing at The Simpsons when he's watching Twin Peaks, he goes, oh, brilliant! I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. I guess, too, to touch more on, the dystopian themes, like, there's so many, we'll bring up religion as well just before, and messiahs and stuff. It's got so many, like, apocalyptic and visions of the destruction of the world and stuff, with the Esper girl, like, forewarns about, oh no, because Tetsuo's got this power now, like, you have to stop him, you have to, we're on the edge of, like, of the world ending, basically, so.
Yeah, and actually that was interesting when Shikishima actually goes when when he's talking to the other politicians when they're at the meeting, and he forewarns and he says this is what's going to happen, and they're, oh no, stop fear-mongering.
Yeah, you just...
That fucking human race, like, they won't... It has to happen before anyone will fucking do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get nothing for trying to stop it. You get nothing for being proactive. I notice that in business. I notice that in everything, right? And you just see it there, yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to like, they're foreshadowing what's going to happen, but then no one's paying attention to that.
Stop fear-mongering.
Yeah, he'll be right. No, we've got bigger fish to fry. Don't worry about that. It's going to be fine. So, yeah, and then we said earlier too with the people like taking him, and it's like when Tetsuo is going through the streets, causing mayhem and destruction, and then they go, oh, it's Akira. Oh my god, it's him. It's the god figure. But then it's not what they thought it was. They thought there's going to be some guy here to fix all our issues and make what's right again kind of thing. But then you see him, they shoot the cannon at him and he stops it and causes more destruction and mayhem, and it just doesn't stop there. So I guess another dystopian thing to bring up too is that Neo Tokyo has that real like surveillance state to it. You're seeing when Tetsuo gets captured initially, you're seeing like cameras everywhere, and when especially too when they have when he steals Kaneda's bike and they're going through there, then he ends up getting captured by the clown gang, and then they have to come and save him again. That's when he like loses his mind and gets the telekinesis powers like untapped basically.
Yeah.
But you're seeing, I remember there's one scene where you watch the military like watching their every move and seeing where he is with the cameras, because it's one of those things where they're always watching, they're always prying, they're always trying to manipulate things, trying to keep control of the status quo where they want things to be. So
who does that remind you of?
Yeah, go into it if you want to. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I guess the Communist Chinese government, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many? I guess even their use of AI with with facial recognition technology. I think that, what is there, 170 million cameras, and I think there's like in the next few years there's going to be 400 million or something.
Oh yeah, I think we talked. I think we touched on it last week, didn't we? About with examination day, we're talking about like that government thing, with the social credit system they've got there, and if you're considered bad in their eyes, you can't even like use public transport or something like that. Yeah.
But what's even more alarming is that people accept it. Because it's sort of sold to them as like
safety.
Safety.
Yeah.
Which look, I'm too cynical, as you know. I'm sure there's a little bit of that, but safety's not the number one thing.
No, it's all about control, isn't it? That's what they're focusing on.
I even doing a bit of research for this. They're talking about there's even use of like predictive policing, building up a report or looking at what someone's wearing, racially profiling, looking at their search history just to build up a bit of a profile, and almost like Minority Report,
Yeah.
It's very scary.
That could be a future episode too, Minority Report.
Yeah, it could be. We should note that one down, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, 1988. Look, I'm sure there were surveillance states around, but it really foreshadowed it, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I guess like there were like bits of it that are a bit dated, where the computers are a bit flashy and stuff in the animation, but like it's still. But I think most of the part it does. It doesn't. It's not like examination day last week where it felt very like 80s budget sauce. Yeah, DOS. No, it does feel like you really are in the future, and it does feel like it could fit the year 2025, like a lot of the stuff, or even further down the track. So I guess too also with I like the part too with the coup d'etat when the general Shikishima. Sorry, this future. I'm terrible with names. I always forget names. When he does the coup d'etat and takes over, and then they're kind of like, they've got like little gunfire exchange where he shoots and then he's like, don't follow them, follow me now, kind of thing. When
a bit like Napoleon, right?
That power goes to them. They're using the military power to just do whatever they want now, kind of thing. Yeah, get control of it. So
yeah, look, in a way, it's probably we hit the hour point. I reckon we leave it there. But I'm really glad you recommended this to me, and I wasn't glad last week watching it hungover.
Yeah, I was a bit worried actually. I was a bit like, I'm gonna have to carry the whole thing, right? I'm not interested in it. Yeah,
honestly, I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? But we get to the recommending stage. I would highly recommend this. Now, if you're not into anime, it's probably going to be a little bit difficult. Which I'm not hugely into anime, but.
It doesn't have a lot of those anime tropes, though. I'd say it's a bit.
No, it doesn't. It's not all teehee and.
There's not a lot of there's not too much humor in it, really. Yeah, it's very dark and direct to the point. Yeah.
I think if you watch this for some of the themes, for how thought provoking it is, and just to see the influence on a lot of other movies, I would highly recommend it. It's probably one of those things I think everyone needs to watch at least once.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And if we said earlier, it's inspired so many different movies, TV shows, video games, other literature as well. So I can see, I've said it earlier in the episode, I can see its fingerprints in a lot of things that we see now in the 90s and 2000s and stuff. So, and yeah, I'm really, as I said earlier too, as well, like I'm so glad because of this podcast, doing more research into it, it's made me really appreciate it like on another level before. Because before it was just like, oh, it's just a great movie with some cool cyberpunk themes to it, but now it's like, oh no, it's actually saying, talking about Japanese history and where they're worried about where it was going and where it is now, and then so many different allegories to the atomic bomb and weaponry and the human psyche, our way we operate, the way we think, and always want, and capitalism as well, touching on that, and capitalism untapped basically. So And like it kind of makes me really want to read the manga now because I kind of want to know what that middle section is where they
You want to pad it out, right?
You want to pad it out, and I want to see what differences it has, and if it does delve in more to like what happens to the other parts of the world, and also to like more I guess backstory of Kaneda and Tetsuo and the other characters. So no, as I said earlier, it's definitely like it's a masterpiece in my opinion. So
yeah,
I'd highly recommend anyone to watch it. But as you said as well, you gotta like not want to see it, but it can be a bit jarring if you're not into anime or cartoons kind of thing. Yeah.
It can be, but just very thought provoking.
Yeah.
Just watch it for that alone. I think if you're into seeing your movies and you want to think, which I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap up this episode, and so for our listeners for next week, what can they expect, Andrew?
What are we doing next week?
Oh, glad that you asked me the question. We're doing Starship Troopers.
Oh, yes. That'll be a bit of a lighter one after this.
Do you want to learn more?
I would like to know more, yes.
Are you doing your part, Andrew? Yeah, it's going to be a bit more lighthearted than Akira. And I mean, there are some, I guess, elements on the human psyche in that episode, but not nothing near Akira.
I really could have watched Starship Troopers last week. That would have been the film hungover.
Yeah, we should have done it this week. Yeah, no, but that's definitely a movie that I remember as a kid watching and I loved it just for the action. But
I remember seeing the poster. Do you remember the poster?
Yeah, it's so iconic.
Hey, kid.
Cool, yeah, I really want to play that. Yeah, I want to see this. Yeah. But yeah, so that will wrap up this week's episode. And as always, you can follow us on our Instagram page at DystopediaPod, or send us an email at info@dystopedia.com.
info@dystopediapodcast.com.
My apologies. Absolute bell end. Anyway, as always too, guys, please rate us on your favorite podcast platform, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, I think I saw recently. So
yeah,
wherever we are, please give us a 5-star, 1-star rating. We don't care, as long as you give us the feedback. So
recommend some episodes if you like as well. We don't care.
Yeah, let us, if there's anything you want us to explore or a show or anything like that, let us know. We're happy to go into it and, explore it and dissect it as well. So yeah, so on behalf of myself and Andrew, we'll hope to see you soon and catch you next week.
See you guys.